Talking today with my good friend and colleague, Jonathan Rogers. Jonathan is a financial advisor that I've been working with for some time. I thought it'd be a good idea to come in and have us have a conversation so that my clients can get to know you a little bit, Jonathan. Yeah. Jonathan and I are in the same building, which makes things convenient, but we actually have been talking long before I even moved here. He's great at what he does. I just want to chat with him and give a little bit of an intro to some of my clients so that they can learn a little bit about you and what you do. So, Jonathan, why don't we start with, if it's okay with you, just tell me a little bit, about you, about yourself, kind of what was your road to kind of getting to where you are now?
Sure, absolutely. Mike, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So yeah, I grew up in the area in Greater Boston in Westwood, Massachusetts. Moved down as a kid to South Carolina, spent some time down south, and then moved back up here. So I kind of bounced around as a kid a bit and went to school in Boston at Emmanuel College, studied economics and finance there. I pretty much knew exactly what I wanted to do in terms of financial planning before going into school. My brother was a financial advisor, and I had seen him have success and enjoy what he was doing. And in many ways, we're pretty similar. So I figured this would be a good career path for me. And so started my business in 2014. At a firm in Waltham, left there after a year and went to another firm in downtown Boston. Was there for about close to 2 years, and then left and went independent and took all my clients with me. So business, progressed from 2014 through midway through 2016. To going independent, but that's kind of my professional route until I went independent. Back in 2014, I met my wife now. We met back then and got married in 2016. I've got one son, we've got one son right now. Our second kid is due in April, so that's exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's the best thing ever being a dad. So I love it. But yeah, so like I said, went independent in midway through 2016. And, I've watched this industry in terms of investment advising, financial planning, et cetera, whatever you want to call it. And when you're under the hood or behind the curtain, so to speak, and seeing how everything works, you get to see what are the good sides of this business or industry and what are the bad sides.
Right.
So I was able to kind of identify. I've always been someone that looks ahead. So it looks ahead to where do I want to see myself? What's going to set me up for success 5, 10, 20 years from now? Yeah. So that I don't fall into these potholes that I see older men falling into.
Sure.
That are around me that I was working with. And basically that led me to kind of digging into how does this industry work. And I made some decisions to set up my business in a certain way to go independent, to leave the broker-dealer world, which I can explain in a bit more detail later, and then to go towards the registered investment advisor route, to work with my clients in that capacity as an independent RIA. So that's kind of the professional route in terms of, otherwise, we live in Medford, Massachusetts now. We actually moved to Salem, New Hampshire a couple of years ago. So we've kind of been around.
Yeah.
And I've got a place up in New Hampshire down here now. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's funny when you say that you knew what you wanted to do, from kind of straight through, up until I was a senior in high school, I was going to be an engineer. And when I was getting to the point that I was actually looking at schools, I announced to my family that I changed my mind and wanted to be a lawyer instead. So I went straight through from there knowing what I wanted to do. Yeah. But prior to that, I was in the complete opposite direction. So I love hearing you say that, you kind of knew straight out what you wanted to do. also being able to have the experience that you had working for firms before you go out on your own. I had a similar experience, and it taught me things to do, and it taught me things not to do.
Yes, exactly.
So
exactly.
You know, when I opened up on my own, I knew, like you mentioned, some of those pitfalls and things like that, issues that you see either with firms, with the way they're doing business, or if you're working for folks that are much, much older, that might be burnt out or don't have the, you know, that kind of eagerness to build and grow, and trying to, you know, keep yourself away from falling into that. So that's one of the things that I like about you, is that you enjoy what you do, but you also know what you're talking about. Because I have dealt with many financial advisors over the course of my career that maybe got into it because something else didn't work out, and so, oh, why don't I give this a try? And you know, don't necessarily have the knowledge to make recommendations and sort of thing like you do. So why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, tell me a little bit about your business now, your staff, and then kind of just a little bit about what you guys, what you do, what your services are like.
Sure, absolutely. So my business has evolved over time. You know, I worked with a lot of, earlier on in my career, worked with a lot of young professionals that were, you know, in their mid 30s or 40s. So young is relative, but at this point in my career, I've really settled into a niche where the bulk of my business is working with folks that are either near retirement or in retirement. So pre-retirees and retirees. As I built out financial plans, over time, there were different elements that I had to build into the plan. So I would kind of learn as I went along, and I shadowed and worked with, and did joint work with other advisors that are, you know, now 70, 65 years old, that have been in this business for 40 years or 30 years. And I identified that there's all these different things I have to plan for if I'm going to set the client up for success.
Right.
And the more that I do for them, the more value I provide, the better that connection and relationship, or stronger that relationship and tethering to me is going to be. Right. Because the more I can do for them, the more value I can provide, the more they're going to keep me around.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So as I looked at their plans and built out plans for specifically retirement planning, the scope of what we do broadened, and the amount of experts and other professionals that I brought into the process also broadened. So the planning that we do, or the work that we do, I would say, is condensed down into what we call the Clearview Retirement Roadmap. So my company is Clearview Financial Strategies. That's the retirement planning company that I run. My investment advisory company that I co-founded, which is investment management, is Inspire Advisors. But the Clearview retirement planning process is called the Clearview Retirement Roadmap.
Okay.
And that roadmap is really boils down into 5 different areas. You have income planning, you have investment planning, you have tax planning, you've got healthcare, which is, you know, long-term care, Medicare,
right,
and then you've got obviously where you come in, which is estate planning.
Okay.
So income, investments, taxes, healthcare, and legacy, all these different areas. As I planned, I realized we have to bring these areas in order to position the client for success.
Right.
So whereas initially it started off with just myself doing a narrower scope of work for the client, investment planning, certain types of insurance planning, you know, a little bit of tax planning, but not getting obviously in too deep with that. Whereas as time went on, and now the process involves all 5 of those different steps,
Right.
It's a lot more comprehensive. So for a lot of folks that come in, you know, they might be worried about just investments, or just long-term care, or honestly, I have folks come in with, you know, they've saved up a lot of money and they're just concerned about estate planning, trusts, irrevocable trust, revocable
Right.
trust, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Folks with less money come in and are worried about, you know, I got sold this bad annuity, or I've got high fees at Merrill Lynch, or wherever it is. All these different concerns. Typically, people come in with one or two focuses or focused ideas in their head that they're concerned about.
Right.
And by the time we finish the first conversation, or they come to a seminar event that we do, suddenly they're concerned about like five things. So yeah, to answer your question, what we do in our business, my business right now, is really focused on the Clearview retirement roadmap with the majority of our clients. We do take on, a lot of our clients have children that are in their, 30s, 40s, 50s.
Yeah.
And we do planning with them as well. So we do kind of set up initial financial plans for, young professionals or their children that are maybe 45, 50 years old. Okay. We help them set up the plan, set themselves up to position their parents' inheritance or whatever in an efficient manner as well.
Right.
But primarily it's doing pre-retiree planning and retiree planning and getting all those ducks in a row. The way I put it is you either have to hire an expert to create a successful plan for retirement, or you have to become an expert.
Right.
It's one or the other. If you don't do one of those two things, which you absolutely can become an expert, and I have clients that are prospects, I should say, that are engineers, for example. Like you said, you wanted to potentially be an engineer, but I have prospects that have come to my seminars, very analytical engineers, and they are always going to do it themselves. It's not good for them to hire someone else because in their mind, they need to have their hands in and controlling.
Right.
And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
They should do that. And they're going to need to spend a lot of time educating themselves, and they will. They're probably not going to know the nuances that you or I would know from this being our full-time career.
Right.
But you either got to become an expert or hire an expert to put all these ducks in a row so that you don't fall into the potholes. Because at the end of the day, the biggest value that an estate planning attorney or a financial advisor provide is helping people avoid unbelievably expensive mistakes.
Right, right.
That's by far the biggest value that we provide to our clients is avoiding six-figure mistakes in taxes, in probate fees, whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny when you mention, you've got these 5 areas that you've kind of worked out in your system, but people come in focused on 1 or 2 of those areas. And that's something I see in my business as well. And what I tell clients, a lot of the time is you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
You don't always know the right questions to ask. So they'll come in to see me and maybe focused on a will. So it's just a will. Or they have a concept of, a trust or putting their house in the trust. So it's just, they just want to talk to me about trust. And I have to say, no. There are other things we have to talk about here to look at your overall picture. So much like you said, you've got things divided up into these 5 areas and you've got somebody that might be coming in focused on 1 or 2, but after they talk to you, they know, okay, I have to look at these other pieces of the puzzle too, not just these 1 or 2 things.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that, it's most people that come into our seminars, for example, they have their property and casualty insurance agent, they have their attorney that they're, is their buddy or whatever, so they got referred to. They've got their Fidelity, maybe have a financial advisor from Fidelity who really is just a representative that calls them once a year.
Yeah.
They've got all these, they do all these different areas of planning in separate vacuums, and they don't actually have a plan. It's not coordinated. It's not integrated. And a lot of financial advisors bring this up and say it, but they don't actually rectify that issue.
Right.
So they don't actually bring all that stuff together.
Yeah.
The important piece is that you actually have experts in all these areas involved in the process that are working together. If they're working separately, it's chaos.
Right.
And you may have the right estate plan, but they're not working with the advisor or with the CPA. So you're still going to get raked over the coals and taxes. It's not going to be integrated with the estate plan, and your investments aren't set up with the estate plan either. So
right, you're exactly right. And these things, they have to work together. Sometimes with my clients, I refer to it as, a jigsaw puzzle where we've got these separate pieces, but they have to fit together to make the overall picture. So if I've got a client that's coming to see me for some estate planning and they're seeing you for financial planning, the fact that you and I are able to be in communication about what exactly we're each doing for the client helps us to, make a cohesive picture to make sure that we're not doing anything that's, counterintuitive to each other, and that we're all, on the same wavelength and doing the right thing by that client. So you're 100% right about that, and the fact that we need to be able to be in contact to talk about this stuff, or else if we don't know what each other are doing with the same client, we're going to fall into some of those pitfalls that we're trying to
basically torch the other one's plan and not even knowing it if we're not working together. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So you mentioned some of the seminars that you put on. So can you tell me a little bit about how that works, what somebody can expect if they come into one of your seminars, what that's like?
Yeah. So for a lot of your clients, Mike, they're in their 50s, early 50s, mid 50s,
right,
early 60s. They're obviously thinking about retirement, and they're getting a bunch of invitations in their mailbox at least once a month, if not 5 times a month,
sure,
to some sort of seminar at Davio's or Strega or wherever, a steakhouse in the area or a restaurant in the area. And when I initially started doing these seminars, I've done countless of them now, but when I initially started doing them and observing other advisors, what they had done, what I saw was most of the advisors and the firms that do these types of events come to the venue or the restaurant or the library or wherever it is with an agenda. And that agenda is something that they're trying to sell.
right.
So the best way for us to build our businesses is to try to step into the shoes of the client, to say, if I'm in my client's shoes, how do I want this seminar to function? Or what would I want this agenda at the meeting to be like?
Mm-hmm.
What would I want the process to be like? What would I want them to ask me or say to me or teach me or whatever?
Yeah.
And most advisors, from what I've seen, aren't really asking those questions. They're going into the meeting and they're really doing one of two things. They're either trying to sell an annuity and they're not really a financial advisor, they're just an insurance salesman.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to sell a certain set of mutual funds, whatever situation it is. There's something they're coming in selling and they've got a pitch, and people feel that. Like they feel pitch. They don't feel like this is a consultant that's here to work with me and hold my hand and help me.
Right.
So as I observed that and did that in several seminars, I realized this is foolish. This is not, I'm not going to win trust with people. I gained some clients, some people who saw that, he knows what he's talking about. He's an expert in this area, all these different things. So I can work with him. But where it really became very successful is when I stepped back and said, I need them to set the agenda. So instead of kind of coming to the seminar with a PowerPoint and a bunch of information I had ready to kind of spew at the client or the prospect at the seminar, kind of took a step back and said, okay, how can I make this about them? And so the seminar really is just me. I mean, we do it at Strega Prime downstairs, or now it's, I guess, Strega Italiano Steakhouse, whatever it's called. And I come in, sit down with everybody, and really just ask them, what do you want to talk about tonight? What are you concerned about? And we get, 100 different answers. I'll have, before the virus happened, we have sometimes 38 people in the room. We had a seminar last month, a 2-night event, and one of the nights there were 4 people there. So generally speaking, on average, we've done these for the last, few years here, there's been 25, 30 people in the room, and we'll get a bunch of different answers. I'm concerned about long-term care, estate planning, trust, my will, whatever it is, in my investments, market volatility, my fees, in my investment accounts, whatever it is. So people tell us what their concerns are. I put that up on the board, and then I just start having a discussion with them and basically saying, here's what you need to be concerned about when it comes to protecting your assets from a nursing home. Here's what you need to be concerned about when it comes to how your money that you've saved is going to be taxed. What are the unique strategies, some of the unique strategies among many, that you can set yourself up to reduce the tax bill in retirement by 6 figures? So starting to kind of throw out some of the valuable pieces of information that they want and need that they didn't have coming in.
Right.
That's going to display our knowledge base and then personalize the seminar to what they're concerned about.
Yeah, I love that because when you're talking about somebody that's coming in with a pitch, a particular mutual fund or some product that they know they want to pitch to whatever that audience is, they haven't gotten to know those people at all. So they're pitching something to them without having any idea whether it's the right product for their situation.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with estate planning attorneys as well, where they've got just kind of one set solution and that's what they're, pitching to everybody. But what you do is you turn it around the other way, which is something that I do as well. In my business is I'm looking to the client. No two clients are the same. No two families are exactly the same. So I'm looking at what are their goals? What are their concerns? How can I help them reach those goals, deal with their concerns with products or tools that are specific to them. So exactly like you mentioned, you're not trying to solve the problem without diagnosing it first.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? How can I prescribe something to you if I don't know what your issues are?
People don't like that.
And it's definitely
no one should like that. Yeah. Exactly.
So sometimes we'll have people call us that'll say, well, how much if I want to do a will or whatever, and I say, wait, until I talk to you, and I can't know what you need until we talk about it. So when you're talking about advisors that have this preordained product that they want to sell no matter who shows up, and they're pushing that same thing on each person, for me, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. But lots of guys do it. But instead, you're looking at it, what information would I want to know? And you're talking to each individual person or family to figure out what their needs are. And then, a product that you might be thinking is a good idea for one couple might be completely different than what you're suggesting for the people sitting next to them. So that's what I love about what you do. It's similar to my process here. You're not trying to give a one size fits all. Everybody needs to get in and buy this particular thing. It's different and customized based on the particular client, which is why I'm so comfortable with sending clients to you because I know you look at them, individually like that. But so many, attorneys and financial advisors don't. And what I find, and you may find this as well, is a lot of times they'll come to me after they've been to somebody else or done some other planning, and I have to clean up the mess. And you may see that same thing to you, where they come in and say, well, I just did this last year. And then you have to tell them, maybe this wasn't the best thing for you to do. And you have to kind of fix the problems that were created by somebody else. So do you see that a lot?
Oh yeah, no, it's very common. I had a prospect come into, a client now that came into the seminar, one of the seminars we did recently a few months ago, and their financial advisor previously had sold them a couple of very high fee annuities, and annuities can make sense in certain situations.
Sure, yeah.
Most of them are very bad products, but there are a handful of solid products that make sense in certain situations. The issue is you had a lot of advisors go around peddling them, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're just trying to make a commission off of that sale. So the client had 2, and the average fees were 4% in the accounts.
Okay.
And so on $1 million, that's $40,000 a year.
Yeah.
So I showed her what she was paying in cost in the product, and it was not best for her.
Okay.
To put it simply.
Yeah.
And once she realized all that stuff, she already knew for part of it. She's a very intelligent woman, and analytical and thorough, so she knew what was wrong with it. But I was just confirming that stuff
Yeah,
and showing her.
She had a sense already that it was the wrong thing for her.
Yeah, exactly. And for other clients, a certain type of annuity might make sense for long-term care protection or for whatever, for some level of guaranteed income. But for her, she had plenty of money and all these assets are for legacy, so she didn't need. Anyways, so it all depends. But that was a situation where I had to kind of pick up the pieces, fix it, and she has to eat the surrender charges now on those products, but it's going to benefit her 10 times over in the next 25 years.
Right. Even if can be an expensive lesson to learn, it's still ultimately going to be to her benefit to take that short term, even if it's a payment or, penalty or surrender, something that you have to do now in order to get into the right type of vehicle that's going to be the benefit long term. I mean, for me, sometimes I've got clients that are trying to qualify for Medicaid, and so we might use a very specific type of annuity to do that, but it can be botched, definitely. And again, you're stuck trying to pick up the pieces and sometimes having to deliver that bad news. Even in the story you mentioned, she had an idea that it was wrong, and sometimes they do. And then sometimes I have clients that don't, and they'll tell me, I'm all set, my house is in a trust, and then I'll look at it and say, well, it's not really in the kind of trust that you thought it was in, and I have to break their hearts a little bit.
This trust is useless for what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Which is, again, why I like what you do. You're looking at the particular client's goals and tailoring your products or your advice to them meeting those goals. And so that's what I try and do as well. A trust that might have worked and met your goals when you were 30 might be different from your goals that you have when you're 60. And so, there are a lot of times where things have to change as your life changes. And, you're very involved with knowing your client's family situation on top of their financial situation to make sure, I know with you, there's more than just dollars and cents here. You're looking at their kids, their parents, things like that to try and help, as many of the folks that you can that are involved with your particular clients, which I think is great. I know you mentioned the virus and that things have changed a little bit since then. And by the way, Jonathan and I are in the same room, but we are socially distant from each other while we're doing this. We don't have masks on, but we're a lot more than 6 feet apart. So even in the midst of all this, clients that want to come in and see you or come in and check out one of your seminars. They are still going on, even though you're not able to put as many people in a room that you could in the past, and maybe post-vaccine, things will change around. But for right now, you're still doing it. And folks that want to attend one of these and come and have one of these discussions with you, that's still happening, right?
Yeah. So it's a bit nuanced. So we had a seminar in January and February, obviously not thereafter for quite some time. So this year we had the two in the beginning of the year. Then all the news comes out. We didn't have another seminar until August.
Okay.
So pretty much all of our seminars are 2-night events. I would say 9 times out of 10, it's Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30 p.m. But we had one in August, a 2-night event. We had a 2-night event in September, and another one in October. I had one planned for November. I kind of foresaw this as very potentially not going to happen.
Okay.
So I canceled it.
Yeah.
Prior to even sending out, invitations in the mail and all that.
Sure.
But we're planning one towards the end of the month in January, February, and March. So we have Q1 set up. I believe it's let me just make sure I'm correct here.
Sure.
January, I want to say the 26th and 28th. But anyways, that's probably going to be our next one. It really depends on, obviously how the vaccine is administered, how quickly it is, if lockdowns, Baker keeps lockdowns going, then we'll have to do one in February and so forth and so on if he keeps it going from there. But,
Right.
We are planning on starting them back up in the beginning of the year.
Okay. And
then also to answer your question, meeting in the office we have a private office that no one else is in. It's obviously disinfected. If a client comes in, a lot of our clients do Zoom meetings, so we do the entire process virtually if we're referred to someone by a client or from a seminar. If we do meet in person, I would say the majority of people do want to meet in person now, from what I've seen, because they're able to come in with their masks, and we are sitting well beyond 6 feet apart, and works out totally fine.
Yeah, that's great. And so in January, I tell clients all the time, New Year, it's a great time to start planning and get a hold, on some of this stuff. And so if they want to come in and attend one of the seminars, we're going to do that in January. That's great. But for somebody that wants to take steps sooner and get hold of you and meet you and talk to you now, you're available to do that. They don't have to wait for one of these seminars.
Not at all. So we can set up a call. We can have them into the office, whatever makes sense, for them.
Perfect. So last thing, Jonathan, I just want to ask you so that, my clients that tune in and want to reach out to you, just give me the best ways for them to get a hold of you. Should they be calling? What number should they be calling? Should they be emailing? Just what's the best way? If they say, I know I want to come in, sit down, talk with you, well, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, so they can always call our office. Our office manager is Patrick Gravlin. He handles client relationships for the most part, or folks that are calling in. His number which is our main office number, is 978-290-8878. That's 978-290-8878. So you can reach out to him, call him if folks, want to book a meeting in person instead of going to a seminar. They can always reach our email address is listed on the website. Any of that works fine.
Perfect.
Or they can go through you.
Absolutely. Any clients of mine that are looking for your information can, of course, reach out to me by phone or email, and I'm going to provide your contact info. What's your website if anybody wants to go check it out?
Yeah, so it's clearviewfinancialstrategies.com. Bit of an earful, but clearviewfinancialstrategies.com.
Okay, awesome. All right, Jonathan, this was great. I thank you so much. I think this information is going to be just exactly what many of my clients need, and that have maybe been backburnering this and holding off, and really are recognizing now that they need to take some steps here. So this was fantastic. Thank you so much for telling me about your process and how things work. I think this was excellent. I appreciate you taking the time.
So there's one other thing I want to mention real quick.
Go ahead, friend. Go ahead.
Then we can close it out. So one of the things we go through in the seminar that I think it's probably the one side note I thought of that would be of interest to your clients, that they're probably not aware of. To give you guys a bit of a breakdown of the investment world, you have two sides of the investment world, okay, and the financial planning world. You have basically broker dealers and you have investment advisors.
Yeah.
So broker dealers, it's an institution. A broker dealer is an institution. It's not a person.
Yeah.
And broker dealers have agents, which are financial advisors, okay? And the agents of the broker dealers, which are people, they're paid strictly in commissions to sell certain mutual funds or financial products.
Yeah.
And they're not required to be fiduciaries.
Okay.
So they're not required to actually act in the client's best interest.
Right.
Yeah. That's the broker-dealer side of the world. The other side of the investment world is the investment advisor, the registered investment advisor side of the financial planning world, or RIA for short. So the RIA side of things, that's an institution, again, that has advisors that are representatives of the investment advisory institution. And those representatives or financial advisors are only compensated through a fee. So they either charge a percentage fee or a one-time fee, whatever it may be. Okay, they typically have lower costs than the broker-dealers, and they always have to be a fiduciary. So they have to sign a fiduciary contract with the client that says, I'm going to act in your best interest, not in mine.
Right.
So the one thing I wanted to go through today that I think is for your clients that maybe are content and they don't know, like you said, they don't know what they don't know, is that pretty much 9 out of 10 financial advisors out there, it's like, as of last year, it was 89%, so pretty much 9 out of 10,
Yeah.
are duly registered.
Okay.
So they're charging a fee to their clients and saying they're a fiduciary, but they're also registered with as an agent of a broker dealer.
Yeah.
And can get commissions for the mutual funds that they buy and sell in the client's accounts.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
So I should make this disclaimer. I know some advisors personally that are duly registered that are, I believe, have very high integrity.
Sure.
And they do what's best for their client.
Yeah.
But I would say for the vast majority of those advisors and for clients, if I'm putting myself in the client's shoes, if your advisor, which again, there's a very high likelihood that your advisor at Fidelity, if they're at Fidelity or they're at Merrill Lynch or Goldman Sachs, wherever, one of these big wirehouses,
yeah.
They're duly registered. They're saying they're a fiduciary, but they can take that hat off and sell, high commission mutual funds that they get paid on.
Right.
And they don't actually have to be a fiduciary when they do that. There's no legal recourse when they do that, and it may cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So I say all that because for your clients that have an advisor that they are either are satisfied with or think that they're satisfied with, they need to understand, and they may not, the legal relationship they have with their advisor, because for the majority of them, they have an advisor that's telling them they are working in their best interest, and really they don't have to.
Right, right.
So I wanted to break that down because I think that's
important. That's a great point. They're a fiduciary when it's convenient for them to be
Exactly.
a fiduciary, but when it's not so convenient, like you said, I like the example taking that hat off and step over to the other side. Okay, now I'm not a fiduciary right now. Now I am again. Now I'm not. But they're advertising that they're a fiduciary, and the clients don't necessarily know the difference and just think of they're fiduciary all the time when they don't have to be.
I've met with hundreds of people, and I've never had someone come to my office that was aware of this reality of how the kind of the legal posturing from an advisor of saying I'm a fiduciary but really they're not.
Yeah.
And so it's people need to understand the conflicts of interest, because it costs you over time an exorbitant amount of money if your advisor's not taking care of you.
Right.
And people just don't know what they don't know.
Right. Well, what a great point. And again, that's one of the things I like about, kind of our relationship and us working together is I know that about you, that you have integrity, which means I can comfortably, I can send my mom to come see you, and I know that you're going to look out for her and for her best interest, because that's the way you are. And there may be folks that, again, have the ability to take this hat off and have high integrity and aren't going to abuse it, but there are plenty that, do things the other way. So the fact that you make that distinction, I think that's a great point. Jonathan, again, I thank you so much for this. Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. This was excellent. We'll make sure that your contact information is up on the screen for anybody that's going to watch video of this. And of course, my clients know, but they can always reach out to me and I can put them in contact with you anytime. So thank you so much, my friend. This was great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Glad to be here.
All right. Thank you.